and Breakdowns.
Welcome back to the Chill Sounds and Breakdowns podcast. We have another episode for you. I know it's been a little bit since I put one out. By a little bit, that's like 2 weeks. But still, that's a long time for me because I've been trying to be on it. But we're back. I don't know, first episode, I think, of the third year, going into the fourth year of this podcast. So we're on episode 121. And today we have, you know what? How do we, let's have you introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Magnusdiv, and I'm here with
Surtzy.
Yeah, it was kind of a boring intro, but
I'm pretty stoked. And actually, like, the reason, I mean, this one is even getting going is that you reached out to me and you're like, hey, I have someone that I think would be interesting, like, to have on the podcast. And I think I've asked you before, and we've, like, I haven't gotten around to, like, working it out to see what day, like, we're gonna, like, make something work.
I think I think you and I are so comfortable with each other when we're around each other. We want to engage more, but we're also so chill. We're like, weren't we supposed to do something? And you're like,
which is kind of like, I think it's kind of wild too, because we've, like, met each other
hundreds of times, probably in different locations.
Yeah, like,
not hundreds of times. I was exaggerating.
No, that's actually, like, not. I don't think we've talked like that. I mean, online, yes, but I think I met you when the first time I met you, which was Andres took me to, like, your gallery.
You had a gallery?
I had one for a little bit. Yeah,
that is so cool.
Yeah,
we should do that again.
Oh,
I
man.
love galleries.
Oh, galleries are the shit. I remember the first time you met me was at my gallery. It was a pretty big night. Was it 2017?
Wow, the year I'm not going to be able to remember.
It was 2006.
I remember it's one of the years that I don't know if it was the year that you did it, but the photo that I purchased was the Dia de los Muertos one. I think
I was going to get you a print, but
I have one.
No, I was going to get you a big print of a new one for free, bro.
You can still do that.
I'm still going to. I'm
still do that.
We'll hook you up.
Let me know how much you put it in here. Dude.
No, dude, it's for free.
That's so cool.
It was at a Legacy Fort Worth Labs, right? It was. They changed the name.
Is it? Okay.
They changed the name. It used to be Legacy Lab, or is it Fort Worth Labs? Now it's Legacy Labs.
Fort Worth Lab is what I remember it as, I think.
Yeah, it's because I got into it coincidentally from Andres. He was working with them for a while, and there's some big, I want to say big, but they were some hometown heroes for photographers that worked there as well. And everybody really liked my Katrina work at the time because I was working heavily with a few makeup artists in Dallas. And he just approached me and he was like, hey, man, you got a bunch of stuff. Let's go check it out. And I was surprised there was actually a following for that kind of work.
Katrina?
For Katrina work? Yeah. I didn't think it was going to make an impact in Fort Worth. And then, I had people like you come up to me and, people I never met before that moment. And they were like very, I don't want to say grateful because that's kind of like patting my ego a little bit, but they're kind of they're happy to see the work as if like there's something familiar to them. It was nice to see that my artwork through their eyes, I guess, to see how much that impacted them, and they appreciated it. But yeah, man, you were so chill that night. Like I was I had my whole family there. I don't know if you remember, but it was at the it's been quite a long time, but it was at the end that we had this discussion, you and I believe even then we were supposed to link up and like learn photography to get something. I forget. I can't remember
asking you because you had like a little bio up, and I read that you picked it up and was I think it had like a thing about like self-taught with like a lot of the stuff, and then like. For me at that time, like that seemed so revolutionary to me. Not to the self-taught itself, but what I was looking at.
Yeah.
Like the photos in the gallery and everything. I'm like, this looks absolutely amazing. And you're telling me like it's just because you were like, I want to learn how to do this. So that like clicked something in my head, and I'm like, that's really cool. So like I think I spoke to you about that like a little bit. I'm just like, that's
like inspirational.
Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like. And I was just, and I think at the time, like in that time of my life, I was like searching for those moments, for those like parts where I would be like, what's gonna push me to figure out what I like am gonna put myself into, kind of.
Did you end up finding it? Like
what I think what I discovered at the end is this podcast inspired a lot of what I think, and it's just creating community and inspiring like connections. This like with this, I've tried to, I was just telling Miguel before, like I'm like I feel like I've focused a little bit more on like what I'm comfortable with, which is music. So I've had like musicians and stuff like on here, and this started by like a little like accident mistake. I was just supposed to do a little bit to promote a
cool.
festival, you know, and then just I fell in love with it, and I realized like, oh, like on this podcast it was less.
That's
I
so
think
nice.
it fed two things, and this is weird because they're the opposite of each other. But like, it took a little of the ego away from myself because I got to just let people show off what they were passionate about. And there's something that like, if you talk to anybody, I don't care what the subject is, if they like are super passionate about it, it's the most interesting conversation ever. Like I love listening to it. And it also like let me be part of something like week after week, you know what I mean? So it also did like, it took away part of the ego, but it fed the right part of it, I guess, where I'm like, oh, I get to do something. I get to be productive. I get to offer
it feeds your curiosity to teach yourself more.
Very,
you know
yeah.
where you're at, yeah.
And it's that fuel. So I basically created something where I keep getting that spark, that fuel. Like every week I'm talking to somebody and be like, that's why like I want to keep pushing. Like that's why I want to keep doing stuff, you know?
I kind of feel the same way with my podcast. I feel like if people are passionate about some things and then they talk about it, I think it also teaches you things about yourself too. Like like certain challenges and stuff that might be similar.
Yeah. Cool. So actually, yeah, I'm here. I'm going to learn probably the most about you today, and I've been just even like glanced at your at your socials and like Instagram and stuff, and just was like, okay, you're doing a lot. It was kind of hard to focus on what, and then like I listened to a few of the podcasts that you've been on, and yeah, you really do a lot of things, but it's kind of like you also chase that curiosity, and like if it inspires you to like, hey, I want to do this, you pretty much is like, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, I live a lot of my life in flow. I don't know if that makes sense. So I kind of just like do it as I want to do it, and then I end up doing too many things.
Okay.
But it's like not a problem until people ask about it. Then I'm like, I don't know. I don't know where to start.
What do you mean until people ask about
Like
it?
they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, I have no idea.
That's why I didn't want to start with that question and be like,
Yeah.
okay, so what do you do? Like there's a lot that you do. Do you feel strongly one way or the other? Or actually, before we get to that, what started it all was you were modeling for your mom, who's a photographer. Is that
When
correct?
I was 4.
You were
yeah.
4. Okay, so is that the first kind of intro into
at that point
artistic
I wanted to
work?
be a stylist because I would like put I would steal my mom's heels and stuff at that age and like her lipstick, and I started just to go on like she got really mad about that. But I think that was like an intro to like fixing my hair and doing my makeup and my clothes and modeling and all that stuff.
So that was the first introduction to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first one I can remember. But I think I was writing at the time because I started talking like really early in, like maybe a year or so. And I started doing poems like shortly after that. But it's just like I always just wanted to make things.
Make things.
Yeah.
Okay. So is that like the common denominator in like everything you do?
And I also like to see it. So
Okay.
I just want to like see how I'm a scientist, so I'm very experimental. So like I like to make things and see how it goes, and I don't know how to explain it.
No, I think you're explaining it. Yeah.
I think it's kind of like we all have the same that same pull to become better. I think it's the new wave renaissance. I feel now that everybody has access to technology, we're a lot more technocentric, and we have it used to be. Let me backpedal a little. It used to be 20 years ago. Access to information was limited because you would have to go to these gathering centers, whether it be the library or university, what have you. Internet wasn't very viable to a lot of people. And now that, we're in 2024 now, I think that adds a lot to people's daily lives because it causes us to continue to ask different questions every day.
And you can get through it really fast too. Imagine if you had to read a whole book to learn something.
Exactly. It's like, yeah, so I start thinking, I'm like, the artists that are around here, the way we're acting, it kind of reminds me of, Renaissance men, one like Michelangelo, Picasso. You have people who they come from different walks of life, and somehow they make that work for them, where they, I'll give you an example. There's a model that I shot Sorry, I had this away from my face. There's a model that I shot. She had been published a few times, and then I found out in the middle of one of our shoots that she was a neuroscientist. Just in the middle of the shoot, she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a neuroscientist," and then she followed me, and I followed her on our not our artist page, but in personal pages, because we just we clicked or what have you, and then she became the head scientist for COVID research here, and it was just
Wow.
it was weird to see people that you knew that were creative and they're artistic in any form that they can be, but they'd still be so rigid when it comes, not rigid, excuse me, but regimented when it comes to their science.
Yeah,
it's like having two hemispheres coexist with each other, and watching that in a person is kind of beautiful. So I'm always fascinated when I meet new people just from that walk of life. But I can only imagine what the music industry brings to you when you start talking about stuff like that, like where people come from, where they go.
Yeah, it's one of the first experiences I've had where I'm having the same thing. So maybe yours is like you're shooting someone and you find out, oh, they do this other like crazy thing,
Yeah.
And I've had that where I'm just like watching. I've had that in two instances. One, I'm listening to a band that I know that's from here, and I'm hearing them for the first time, and I'm like, this music is amazing. Like it is. Like I'm actually like super captivated. And then you find out like their regular day job. I'm like, that's great. Like that's the duality of like things. But then the opposite is happening. Actually, this is a good example. This is probably one of my first times experiencing. So Yasmin is an artist. From here, and then I talked to her, and there's like R&B music, and I was like, this is really cool. And then he's like, yeah. I was like, oh yeah, in the daytime, like I'm a mechanical engineer. And I'm like, that's amazing. Like that's so cool. Like the duality of things. And I mean, speaking of that, like I was like even listening about that as well. But like you have like a master's degree like in sociology, is that correct?
Yeah.
But you also studied like anthro. No.
And anthro was my under.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I feel like with art, a lot of people have to have like backup plans.
Yeah.
So like it's always exciting to see like what their main, like the thing that might be fueling their art gigs. Or
yeah, because
I mean I go negative sometimes if I'm spending too much money in my passion projects, and I have to have like other ways of like because like
cat burglary.
Cat burglary.
Me and cat women were out there.
Well, I mean, and that's I was having a conversation with somebody, and I was talking about like everything that I'm doing now. I'm like, it makes me so like happy now that if I do whatever job and it just lets me keep doing exactly what I'm doing, like I'm still happy at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, so
that's such a good place
I don't know
to be.
exactly. Yeah. And I was like, that's kind of what I should be striving for. For like years, I was striving for like what success looked like to me. And it was always what success looked like to other people or what I thought they were thinking success was. You know what I mean? Like I was like, well, there's selling this many like arenas and stuff like that must make them happy. I don't know that, but that's my perception of what they're seeing. And then a lot of that just caused like just being unhappy. I'm just like, okay, I'm not gonna really focus on that. But when I realized like, what if I just completely focus on happiness, and then we'll make everything else work around it. Like as long as that's the center of it, I'm like, cool, I'm good. Like I have to be okay with like what that makes me. Now that doesn't mean I've also wanted to make sure I differentiated between like being happy and being just like it's not just content like
you're content with the mediocrity.
Yeah, I gotta be like I really like being good at stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't like I've gotten accolades for stuff where I'm just like I didn't work hard on that, and it doesn't feel as good as like when you get an accolade and you're like I worked my ass off for that. So I'm like there's no way that you can stop striving for something. At least for me in my case, I'm like I can't stop striving for something and be okay with it, because I'm again in turn not going to be happy anymore, because I'm just like I'm not working hard for something.
Is there anything that made you like one day just be like, this is what I actually want? Like a specific moment, or was it a dream?
No, I think it's just, I mean, I've had definitely a lot of like creative endeavors through like my years. I just like always thought I wanted one thing, and I think it's being okay with like wanting multiple things, and like if I change my mind, like that's perfectly fine too, because like I've always done stuff with like visual media for like forever. Like I've done I was the kid that like everybody was skateboarding and I got a camera, or actually, correction, my mom got a camera for Christmas, and that means I got a camera. That's like the old camcorder stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm making the videos. You know what I mean?
Bro, do the ollie.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I was like the one like making video stuff. I remember when like I think I tried YouTube and I like didn't figure it out. But like when Vine was around, like I got super big into like Vine and like was making stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is only 6 seconds at a time. But I'm like, again, stuff that no one's telling you to do. I don't even think like I didn't get like big or anything on there, but it was fun. Like I go, okay, I like doing this. I'm like, okay, I got to be okay with doing that. And then like right when the pandemic started, right before I started a vlog, and it was just because I had seen a couple people do vlogs, and I'm like, you know what, this seems fun.
Yeah.
And pandemic hit, so I'm like, okay, cool. So I literally, instead of translating that into like, how do I make this work? It was just like, in the future, for this whole time period, this will be my version of like home movies. I go, so now I'm just creating stuff. Again, it's that itch to create. And then for me, I made myself and then I was in a metalcore band for like forever. So it was always like creating something.
What was your favorite metalcore band if you were in a metalcore band?
My favorite metalcore band? Oh, man.
Were you into melodic stuff? I know that doesn't go mesh with that genre.
No, that's what I did. Yeah.
Like,
I love that.
Like in the intro.
Like After the Burial?
After the Burial is sick.
I love After the Burial.
Was really sick.
Carnifex? No.
Carnifex is a little too heavy.
Oh, wait, is melodic a name of a band?
No,
it's
a band. I was like, in the intro.
It's so, when you get into like genre talk and stuff like that, I can tell you every musician hates it. Like if you ask them like, what's your genre?
I had to do that whenever I submitted my song to be distributed. It was like, what's your genre? I was like, nah.
Yeah, because it's just the idea of like boxing it into something.
Like, what the heck?
It's like, just listen to it. Like,
what if it's like rock and classical or something? Like
with rock and polka?
Then
so
they call it
with music these days, like everyone's I mean, one of my favorite things is people who combine stuff that shouldn't go together, and they do.
Like Lil Nas.
I had one of my friends' bands. They're called Werewolf Theirwolf, and they have like an indie. It's like an indie rock band, but they had like a salsa breakdown in the middle of like one of the songs at the end, you know. And then like I've heard like a heavier band go into like a jazz like little break. So all these like combinations of things are really cool because you can mix whatever you want.
Yeah, that
together.
reminds me of like house music. Sometimes they'll just mix random things in there.
Yeah, no, but you ask a band like. There's either two options, which I remember what we were doing. One is when they would ask us what genre we played, we'd try to list every single influence that we have. I go, no, you need to understand it.
This came from the Beatles.
You know, and then it got to a point where you're like, you know what? It's just metalcore, which is what I just said right now. Because I'm like, you know what? Whatever that means to you, like, it's fine. It's just whenever you like just say a genre, like. Okay, so what just happened? I said a metalcore band, and your brain went to like, what metalcore bands do I know? So that's automatically what you think my band's probably going to sound like.
Can it be experimental forever?
Yeah, you can.
That's what I'm just gonna do experimental.
That's why I think most people just let other people say what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like everybody has their own interpretation.
I mean,
of what
even bands that are pretty stuck in their ways, like Bring Me the Horizon in the beginning was more of a thrash, I wouldn't call it thrash, but a speed metalcore, death metal kind of thing, which was kind of rad. And then no one says rad anymore, but I'm saying it. So.
You're saying
I don't know what people say these days.
I don't know what people say.
Are we going to?
What
are the kids saying?
I'm turning 30, so like I feel like I say cool.
You're older than me, bro. Like,
wow, yeah, you could tell.
My eyes are.
I just turned 34. You know what? Where's the bottle?
Chug it.
I'm gonna turn 38 this November.
That's cool. But back to the genre thing. I've been letting people send me songs that they think of when they hear my stuff, and I feel like that helps because then I've been looking at the genre, and it's like siren pop.
Oh,
so
cool.
I was like, I've never even heard of that.
See, I don't know what that is, but it sounds cool. One of the things you can do, and you'll probably start seeing is
Mermaid Soda.
Yeah, that's cute. That sounds cool.
Yeah, people will start adding your songs to playlists, and that's kind of how you'll figure it out too. Like they'll add it to like this song sounds good with this, and then they'll look through the playlist. I'm like, okay, that's what people
like
kind of
breakup music.
Yeah. Oh, there's I see that on. It's like a trend. I don't know if you've seen any artists do it, but they'll go like, let's see what my song is like on, and then they'll be like, who's putting it on these types? Like the titles for like some playlists are so wild. Like it is crazy. But yeah, it
can't
cool.
be wilder than Marvin Gaye's playlists.
Marvin Gaye's playlist?
Let's get it on. He's probably on the wild stuff.
Shit, yeah. He's probably in every... Wait, that's not good if it's on every playlist. Yeah, man, that's a wild transition here.
Wait, so back to you figuring out what you wanted to do during COVID. I call that the COVID Renaissance. That's like a thing that I've written a lot about. Because a lot of people kind of popped off. A lot of people that were like stuck in the 9 to 5, but then like had to go home and force themselves to learn to be alone, I guess.
Yeah, so what do you
a lot
like
of different
doing?
things.
Like, because it is so... It's something that even maybe a little before that, but definitely during that period, like I remember having a period of maybe like a year or two where I was just like, I am not doing anything. I was like, I'm not doing anything new at all. Like, I don't know how long it's been since I've tried something new, done something. Like, it's just like going through the motions. I go to work, I come back, and I feel miserable at this place. And I'm just like, I'm okay. And the thing that broke me is I'm like, I am okay with this. And in my head, I'm like, this is what it's going to be like forever. And I'm like, oh, and then I remember realizing where I'm like, oh, I'm fine with that. And I'm like, that made me angry. I'm just like, I should not be like fine with that. Like, why am I okay with this? COVID, like, I mean, with me, like I worked at a bank at the time. So we still had to work for some dumb reason. But still, there's more time where like, oh, you know, I just started that vlog. So I was like 5 episodes in, but I had bought my first camera. So after those 5 episodes, because I made myself prove to myself I wanted to do it with my phone. So I'm like, if you can do it like with your phone, then I'm like, it's like, or if you don't want to do it with your phone, that means you don't want to do it at all. So I'm like, I mean, the phone at the time, I think I had an iPhone 11, which was right when it came out. So I was like, I should be able to get something done here. And I put out 5 that I liked, you know, and I'm like, okay, cool. And invested in, I'm like, well, I can't stop. So I was like, now there's an obstacle. Like, this is a damn quarantine. Like, what do we do now? Like, so figuring out like the obstacle with that. But yeah, I think a lot of people just finally had the time to like sit down and be like, oh, don't have to do this, you know, really, especially with figuring out with like, you know, the government figured out for a little bit, be like, oh, well, these people can stay at home for a while, you know, and some people took advantage, like learned how to, you know, produce music, took up something that they always wanted to try as a hobby, and then realized that, like, oh, I can turn it into maybe more, like, and then I can actually have fun with something that I'm interested in.
Yeah, I think I had the opposite experience.
Really?
Yeah, I had a great time during COVID, man. I got to stay home and do the things that I was already doing. Like, I always set time every day for myself to study any discipline I want. It's just like, hey, thank you, brain, for doing the shit you don't want to do. So, and sometimes I give myself months, and sometimes I give myself years to learn something. And one of the experiments was photography, and that's how I got into it. But recently, during COVID, I got into Python, learning Python and web scraping, doing all that stuff. So it's just like, it could be anything.
What's that?
Python is a coding language.
Ah, okay.
So it's like it's used for automation, and they have different frameworks, different libraries that fall behind it. It's pretty boring. I'll tell you what, but I love it.
It'll be generated soon.
No, it's already AI generated.
It's that just not. We just have to tell it. Look at this thing. Fix this website.
Yeah, no. I got my bachelor's in web development in 2017, and I've never used it. Besides,
I'm sure you've used it some way.
Oh, I've consulted as a web developer, but it's not like I never had a passion for it. It was just.
Oh no, that's gonna be hard.
Oh yeah.
Did it seem practical at the time?
Oh man, I got into that school because I said I didn't have a degree to fall back on, all that stuff. They recently laid off everybody from my plant at the time when I got out of the Army. So I was living in Roanoke at the time, and I was stuck, and I have my child with me, and we have this apartment, and, I'm a single dad, and I'm, like, trying to figure shit out. And I'm like, I can't be this guy that has to ask for help. And I never felt like I should, but I had to because I had to eat my pride for my son. So I just like, I need to find an outlet. I need to find something that's cathartic and could help me basically make me sound smart.
Yeah.
To people, like, oh, is he able to learn? So I looked at the attrition rate, the hardest courses in that art institute, because it was the quickest school I can get into. And I got in within like 3 weeks. I took a test and I was in class. And the reason I did that was because the GI Bill was paying for everything. So I was getting money, so I didn't have like a lapse in me being broke.
Yeah.
So I got in there right away, and I was going through a hard time just because my ego was down. You know, you get to a spot where you're like, who am I? I should have been something else. All these other things.
Yeah.
And I got,
hate that.
yeah, no.
It's terrible. I feel like everyone has to go through that.
Yeah, like at that point, I wanted to be the command sergeant major of the Army. Got out after 10 years. During that time frame, we were having drama between my child's mother and I. We were fighting for custody, whatnot. And ultimately, they were trying to use my uniform against me. It's like that couldn't have my child because I was deployable, which is a great point. So I got out of the Army for my kid, and I, had to deal with the transition from being this soldier. It's only known being a soldier from 17 to being some civilian, single dad, and just trying to grind. So the Art Institute was not anything I planned for or anything I wanted, but it was just kind of like when I had like a heart to heart with God in those like, I would call them dark moments. It felt like my prayers were answered because I had everything taken care of for me. So that kind of caused me to want more from myself because I was given the opportunity to not fall as hard as I could have.
Yeah.
So, and it's, you when you're younger, when you're in your mid-20s, even early 30s, you feel like you have the entire world given to you. You have hope and aspirations, and me, like I said, my dream was to be command sergeant major of the Army, and I felt like that was robbed from me because I was an intelligence analyst who has a Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, a few Army commendations, Joint Server Chief. Like I have a shit ton of medals, and the only thing I really miss about it was how accomplished I felt when I was doing stuff. I felt like I was helping my country and my fellow soldier. But like I said, everybody has a plan. It doesn't go through the way it's supposed to go through. And I'm happy it failed, is what I'm saying. Because like Surtzy mentioned, everybody has to go through those moments. And I felt like, when you're feeling sorry for yourself, you're like, oh, look at me, oh, it was me, life is so hard. You go through those moments and you go, okay, well, now no one's coming to help you. Then what do? And so I got angry. Like you went through the same thing. You got angry. And I remember the thing that really kind of launched my curiosity with photography was the students at the Art Institute of Fort Worth were their own characters in their own right. But the photographers were so, because I was a web dev guy, right? I was web development, but the photographers were so full of themselves.
Oh.
And
That's a stereotype.
yeah, they're so like,
Really?
yeah, they're so like, and mind you, like I was in the Defense Intelligence Agency at 18. I was intelligence analyst. I had all these accolades. I didn't go in front of these.
I want to be one of them.
Yeah.
But I went over there and I was watching them have so much fun, and I was like, oh, well, there's something to this, right?
Yeah.
And so I go up to a few photographers and I asked them to help me learn. And they give me the cold shoulder, like, whatever, go learn on your own. People who are still in the community today, I can list them off if you want. Be like, this
The gatekeepers, here we go.
Yeah, no. But he just did that guy that kind of fueled me to get into photography. At the time, he was a good photographer. And I would see his artwork on the wall, and then I would see Rashad. You know who Rashad is.
Yeah.
I would see Rashad's photographs on the wall. I was like, man, this is the shit. This is what I want to be. Is this guy that creates this immaculate art, play with light. And so I go up to the first person and I ask him, I was like, hey, and I'm respectful, cordial. I carry your bag, so buy your lunch money. I'll put you on my back. I don't care. Just tell me how to shoot like you.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, just go to this website. And he walks away like, whatever. And I'm like, cool. Maybe I got him at the wrong time.
Yeah.
So I asked him one more time, and he was like, basically no, right? Not to like
because of competition.
No, I wasn't good at all. I was trash at the time.
Because it was like a waste of time.
No, he felt like he was
like a lot of work.
No, he had the personality of like he's one of those people that don't understand that they didn't make themselves, that everybody helped him become who he was. So he felt like he was
egocentric.
Yeah, super. Until this day,
It's like you gotta find out by yourself. Blah blah blah.
To this day, he's still like that. I mean,
forgetting that someone probably helped him. Yeah.
That sucks because everyone has the whole team.
Yeah.
Like it's impossible to do things without a team.
The second person I asked was Rashad. And Rashad, he was very hesitant. Now, he wasn't no with me. He wasn't like, you can't know the secrets of flash photography. There's a ritual here. No, he was more of, are you serious? Let's see how serious you are. So I'm like, he gives me one single off-camera flash, and he's like, all right, play with this and tell me what kind of issues you get with it. And then I'm like writing down notes, and I'm moving the lights around. I'm like overexposed. I'm like doing all of it. I'm losing the meaning behind the flash. I'm like, this is just too hard. This is impossible, bro. And I'm like feeling bad for myself. So I go back and forth with him, and he kind of like babies me into it. And then finally he's like, all right, let's break it down Barney style. I'm like, okay, whatever you want. Okay. And so he goes into this whole, you expose for ambient light, and then you shoot with your flash, and the flash should fill your foreground. Your background should be already set for that exposure. And I'm like, that's pretty quaint. Let me do that. And then when he realized I learned that principle, which was a few years, he's like, okay, now you can understand about high key, low key. And I'm like, okay, these are frames in the background. Okay, now that you know that, here are compositions. So that man, he gave me stuff to run with, and he didn't like leave me abandoned. So ever since him, like anybody who ever wanted to learn photography, it's like, come along, I'll show you. Because it's like two different mentalities behind the, I guess, the first mentality being, I'm not going to show anybody because I don't either want them to learn or I don't want them to be as good as me. And the other mentality is, I want people to love photography as much as I do.
Yeah. I've definitely ran into those experiences because I don't know. I was saying like, oh, you do a lot of stuff, but I realized like, damn, I've gone through a few like different things. But so I've approached things two different ways. Sometimes I've approached people to tell me what to do so I can get the easy way to do things because I don't want to learn. And that's how I later in life learned. I'm like, okay, that's how I knock off stuff that I don't want to do. It's like if I'm not willing to sit there for hours on end and just tinker with stuff and see what works, what doesn't, what does this do, then I don't want to do it. And then I remember when I started that vlog, I asked my friend, I'm like, I think he had the A7 series like camera, and at the time I didn't know what it was, but I was just like, what camera do you have? Like, I need to get one, like, because I want to start doing this. He's like, I just want to get what you want. Huh?
You talking about Andres?
No, none of this. Okay. This is my friend Zaylin, and he was like, man, like I'm gonna tell you this, like, and I think you're better off like just doing your own research and finding out exactly what you need. And at the time, like, and this is one of those stories that I've said a lot of times on here, but I was just like, oh, fuck off. Like, I don't want to help me. You know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. But no, it really was like, I was ready to invest almost $2,000 on something I had no need for, like at all at the time. I was learning, like I was just like ready to spend money, like let's go, for no reason. And again, like that's something I've done before. Like I've spent and bought all sorts of gear and then realized I don't like this, you know? So he was one of those where like I came back to him and I was like, dude, I appreciate you so much, because I went and like bought something that like actually fit what
your objectives
could do, my objectives, and like grew with me like the right amount of time. Like so but yeah, like have you experienced any like sort of like people gatekeeping or anything like that?
Or not with gatekeeping? Yeah, I mean I'm 5 feet and I try to be a high fashion model, so it's like a lot of people try and do. And I'm brown, like it's like a whole thing. But
I didn't know that.
Tattoos.
We're all brown here.
I'll drink to that. But I have a lot of people that want to be mentorees. I don't know if that's the term. And I'm constantly like, do I help them? But it's hard for me to just be like, this is how you become a model, because there's so many different types of genres, and I don't want them to like start copying like certain things that are my passion projects when they don't have any kind of symbolism tied to it, and stuff like that. Or if they don't feel comfortable with certain genres, or like the clothing brands and stuff like that don't align with them. It's hard for me to just be like, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
Because I want them to kind of like find it on their own kind of. But it sounds kind of mean sometimes, because I'm like, I'll give them the basics. I'll be like, just try and figure out what genre you like first.
Yeah. That's kind of similar like to your experience. It's like if you can handle like this much information and make something with it, then if you come back like again, like your experience with Rashad is like, okay, here's a little more build on
I
that.
do that kind of stuff.
And I think that works, because I've also had like, I had someone come up to me and it took me forever to realize that I know what I'm doing in some like sort of fashion, like with like podcasting. And someone asked me like, oh, like, will you help me set something up? I'm like, okay, what do you need help with? You know, like blah blah blah. And they were like basically wanted like the entire like map of everything that I do, like to do it exactly
People
like
sell
me.
that though too.
You know what I mean? And I'm just like, I was like, oh, okay, like then why do you want it from me? And I was like, okay, like, and I gave them like the gist, but then they kept asking like more questions that would take like if I because initially like, I'm like, here's my equipment, here's what I use at the moment, here's what really like you're looking for, blah blah blah, like ways to get stuff for free, like things like that, blah blah blah. And then they were still like asking more questions. I'm like, these are stuff you could have ran with.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
So I was talking to a lawyer about copywriting, art stuff, and they were like mentioning how it's kind of dangerous to even just tell everyone all the methods that you use if you ever plan on taking it seriously and having like things that are just like private.
I think if there's certain like things that you
like your
that go to your, especially
like
artistically, I think if like there's certain things that you take, then those are, depending on if it's like a signature thing for you, then that might be something that you don't share. But I don't know.
I don't think I have anything like that. But then again, I don't. It's kind of that perceived value of things. Like you're around it so much, you don't find it valuable because it's something you have access to. But people that aren't in that realm will find it that valuable. So maybe just me thinking about what I have. No, I'm talking out loud now.
And I want to add another thing. Sometimes if it's like too draining and you feel like the interaction's not worth it, then it starts to feel like, why am I helping that much? That's like, why are they calling me 8 hours a week asking for help if...
I'm sorry, that was my bad.
Hey,
Surtzy.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I mean, it has to be like a... Because I have so many people that reach out to me, and I could spend hours and hours and hours just like helping people. But eventually I'm like... have to weigh it out.
Like you can,
I have people like that hit me up randomly, and I think I stopped helping out everybody that's asked.
Dang.
You
crossed over to the stereotype side.
No. I still
gatekeeper.
I
put you on that list.
I put myself on that list. No,
it bases its artistic value, so it's
there's differences because I have people that are very, I don't know what it is. I'm not a big creator, man. I'm not anything. So it's like, it's weird to have people try to take opportunities from you. Like they try to take advantage of your knowledge base and your willingness to teach. So I've taught a few photographers in the community how to shoot off-camera flash and what have you. And they've come to my shoots. They've held the lights. They've done... they've done Photoshop editing with me, and then they'll go and like ghost me after, bro. Like it's super weird. And I remember I was in this one. I still follow this person. She still follows me. But I remember this one photographer. I taught her how to. She didn't even know what a JPEG versus RAW is, right? Mm-hmm. But she's starting anew and she wants to learn. And I'm like, who am I to tell her no? She's a single mom. She doesn't know anything. So I'm like, yeah, come by and I'll show you what we do. You can hold the light and we can have conversations. So she goes out like to 4 or 5 shoots with me and she learns quite a bit. And I show her how to edit and everything. And she has just enough knowledge to take with her to create a portfolio with her, because she was going out and tagging along with other photographers to like second shoot for them. I was like, I was pretty proud of her and to do what she was doing. But she got so ingrained in the community so quickly, she started feeling like she taught herself. Like she was,
so annoying.
And like she was like and it's the same kind of color grade every photographer. Shit, I'm about to get in arguments with photographers. It's the same kind of color grades that the photographers do. Is like those boho, brown, backlight.
I feel like I know what you're talking about.
Those things, like
I'm gonna clip this and we're gonna put them here.
Cool. Tell them my address too. Don't give me what's up. But it's not even about the shooting style or the aesthetics or the preference of. It's just the attitude behind it was like she felt like she made it to a certain pedestal where she could treat other people like shit. And
I feel like that's a personality type.
It is a personality type.
Because some people like they're like dormant and they're like low key until they get to a certain point and then it just comes out.
It's like waiting for it.
Yeah, but other people like are just nice the whole time.
Like I enjoy. I have quite a bit of people that are actually pretty nice after they learn, and sometimes they just quit photography because they realize they're like, it's not for me, right? And but I remember this. The reason I bring this one up is because another female photographer, same space, wanted to learn how to shoot, and she comes up to me and she's like, I asked a few other female photographers for lessons, and she was being very candid, very transparent with me. She was letting me know that I wasn't her first choice, but she was just letting me know that she wanted to learn from somebody, and she felt like it was I was like, okay, wow, that's a fucking insult, but all right. I was like,
who's my 22nd time trying?
I was like, who's the first person you asked that shunned you and was being rude to you? And she told me it was my protege. I was like, really? It's like, what did she say? She's like, well, I figured it out on my own, so you figured it out. Was her response. So I like at one point when I was like drama-filled Magnusdiv and calling people out all the time and like I was like I think that's when I realized like I need to stop helping everybody that comes across and asking, because I create little mini monsters that think they taught themselves.
Yeah, because
are you done with the strike zone ad? Not everybody's gonna like. There's people that do things for life, and they're gonna like leave a ripple. And a lot of people want to try it, and then other people that try it are not gonna do it for life because they're not the person that wants to do it for life. Yeah. Like my dad's an artist. He's been painting for like 30 years or something dramatic. There's a lot of people that pop up and they'll paint his style, but then they simmer off eventually because it's like not them. It's not their soul. Yeah, like, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, yeah. Like there's nothing wrong with like dipping in and out of stuff. Like if you want to try something, you know what I mean? Like it's a thing that I'm like, I guess that's one liberty that I have given myself. I was like, if I want to try something, like I can try it for as long as I enjoy it. You know what I mean? But if I want to leave it, like I can leave it. You know what I mean? It's fine. It's not the biggest. And I think forever what held me back a lot was that I felt like if I picked one thing, I had to do that thing. Like I had to hold on to that thing forever. And I'm just like, or I would like in my head, I would be like, you don't want this, like whatever. But being okay with like, there's stuff now where I'm like, I think I'll be doing this for like forever. And who knows how long that's going to be, you know what I mean? Like, but teaching, I think I got to a point where like, I knew I had to separate the feeling of like not wanting to teach somebody something because I was insecure that they would be better than me.
Aww.
So once I got over that, it was like, no, like if they get better than me, that's cool. I go, but I should also be leveling up if I'm still in the same like space. You know what I mean? But it's not. I stopped seeing stuff as competition, like altogether. I'm like, it's dumb. Like, especially with art, I'm like, it's dumb. Like it's because we're creating things. Like you're gonna create something completely different than what I can. We could have the same exact skill set. It's still gonna be different. Like it's still like gonna be different because it's coming from two different people. And that's one thing. Like when I went to go help you on like your shoot, like one of the things you told me is like, well, like he's like, I can teach you like all these things. He's like, but he's like, I think with you, he's like, you might be similar to me. He's like, where like I am an artist, like I'm creating like these things. It's not just like this is a good picture. Like I'm in charge. And like you were pointing out like what you do, like your specific style as the art form that it is. It's like I get to create like all of this is under my control. You know what I mean? And you want to find because you were asking like what. Because I was just getting into photography. And then he's like, well, what do you want to do exactly? And I was like, I kind of want to do a little bit of everything. And he's like, well, you can. I know you like doing it. But he's like, if you find out what you really want to do with it, like you can really focus and you can create, like instead of just taking a picture.
Yeah, I believe I said spend more time creating images than taking images.
And the skill doesn't actually have to come so fast. Like whenever I started with the point and shoot. And then I realized like the subjects that I liked from there, and then like the kind of lighting and stuff like that. But I don't. Back to the humble thing. I don't get why anybody would ever get not or become like what is that called? Like when you're like so conceited that you think that you deserve everything, and you're like, I did this.
Narcissism.
But why do people get like that? Because it's like there's so many people that like the top. Like the more you climb, like the more people have helped you. So it's like, why?
I remember when we first had our conversation. I think this was our first shoot together, and I was like, be careful with DFW creatives. And I believe you. How did you feel that time when I told you that?
I was like, well, I had just moved here from Kentucky, so I was like, everyone seems so nice, but it's like different from a model perspective. Models and photographers. I actually didn't see what they were like with each other until I made a group chat of like it's like 200 something people, and it's like a lot of people in the industry, and they all like contribute like tips and stuff and like red flags and stuff, and it's like funny to see like the other side. But before that, I was like, they're so nice to everyone.
No, I know there's a photographer just on me.
So I was going to say like elaborate. So I don't know particularly like a lot of it's like I said, most of the photographers that I interact with are all concert photographers, and most of them are like my friends. Like I don't know.
Like, I think a few like K-Lock. K-Lock is photography.
What?
She's a concert photographer.
I think so.
She's great. Fucking great work, bro. You should. I mean, if you're into that,
I love the low lights.
Oh yeah, she uses the star filter and the angle she gets. It's just, it's more the halation that comes behind the lighting, where it's like you have the Vermeer silhouette, where it's like this almost like a cartoonish line, and then you see this bokeh blur that is soft because of the halation of the Pro Mist filter, and it looks like I want to say 70s, 80s, like you're taking an acid trip, kind of.
Cool.
I'm like, this is the shit that you want to see from concerts. But when it comes to regular portrait photographers, everybody has a fucking ego, man. Everybody thinks they're the newest Lindsay Adler.
Where does that come from? I don't get it.
I think it happens to be. See, you guys know the reason why I got into photography. It was just something that I wanted to learn, and then it became something, and then I fell in love with it. But I think a lot of people get into photography for the wrong reasons, as they do with everything else. And some of the frequented complaints I've heard from models, it seems like a lot of people want to out other people to me. But it happens to be more of a reason to associate with women in underwear is why photographers.
Sometimes it feels like that they treat a lot of models like property. Like I've seen, it kind of gives me pimp vibes sometimes.
Yeah,
like a little bit.
Dude.
But
exactly what she said.
It overlaps like with the sex work world sometimes. So I think sometimes they're like, no, those are my models. And it's
interesting.
It's like a whole.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
I don't know.
yeah,
that's why I don't really shoot a lot of like certain genres down here. I do a lot of self portraits of certain genres, but like I just don't want to be caught in a weird situation because sometimes they confuse it for dating.
Yeah.
So it could be like,
Oh my god.
oh my gosh, she went on a date with somebody else, aka shot with somebody else or something.
That's kind of weird.
Have you ran into that?
Yeah,
Really?
I've shot with over like 200 people, and sometimes it's weird.
Oh no.
But I also do a lot of talking to models and stuff. So we have like blacklist sites and stuff like that.
Yeah, because so one of my friends who was part of Noise Route with us, Bernice, used to do a lot of modeling and stuff like that, and that was one thing that she relayed to me, was like, oh yeah, there has to be like these chats between models where we're like, don't shoot with this person, don't, this and that, this situation happened. And I'm like, I didn't know how like common it was, and
I think it's common in Dallas because of how many people there are.
I mean, there's 4 major photographers that are blacklisted in every circle.
Really?
Yeah, but people still shoot with them because somehow they like their work. It's just, I don't understand it. But neither here nor there. It's just the community is weird, and this is why I'm so much of an introvert when it comes to hanging out with other photographers, because it's like either the photographer themselves wants to put themselves in a niche and wants to know they're associated with you. Where I've had photographers that have met me at you remember Streets of Fort Worth?
Yeah.
So when we used to have those gatherings in Streets of Fort Worth, people would come around me and ask me to show them how to shoot because they're unfamiliar with flash photography. So I'd give a quick lesson and people would go off and do their thing. And so I had this one guy who hit up one of the, Anel Anaya, the Katrina makeup artist.
Oh, okay.
She was out there in the event. And so he associated himself with the Streets of Fort Worth events. And then he said, oh, I know Miguel. He taught me how to shoot. And then I know, I was like, oh, you know Miguel?
Oh, like he was using it as somebody to vouch for him?
Yeah. He's like, oh, you know Miguel, blah, blah, blah. Oh, great. You come by, have a conversation. And dude was taking photos, but they're like not artful, not like great. Like they were, and this is just me talking shit about another photographer's work because I think work is subjective all around. If you want to shoot like shit, then go ahead. That's your fucking prerogative. Sorry.
That caught me off. He's like, art is subjective. You want to shoot like shit, like you can. So we were actually just talking about that when we were talking about like where you were coming out. I was like, he's like, oh, I like making connections. And I'm like, yeah, like that's a fun part of it. But it's also like, and I'm like, I am happy that you're feel cool enough like with me to bring somebody again new like around me, you know what I mean? So I'm like,
I feel like that's like a good indicator that you're doing good.
So I think like you kind of and I think that's what I do when I try to connect like other people. Like I do the same, like I have to vouch like for these people. If I'm saying like, oh, you should work with this person or you should or this person is this, like I won't recommend just like everybody I know who does this. I'm like, oh,
if you like miss and it doesn't go well, then it starts to get awkward.
I mean, it's a reflection on you. So I'm like, oh, like I have to make sure that I know why I'm sending this person your way, you know? But yeah, it's funny. We ran into that so much. And there's one particular person who does that. I remember they were going around, saying that we paid them some sort of amount of money and for a job that we hired them to do, which we didn't hire them to do, but they were doing it so other people would pay them more. And it was like a ridiculous amount of money.
It would never get around or something.
It got around so fast. Like it was like, oh, this person's saying this. And I'm like,
I don't think they would pay you for this.
Because like they were my friends. Like I was like, you're talking to people that I know. And it got back around. I'm like, no, that's not true. They were going to do it. I was like, no, you know what I mean? That'd be different. Like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm gonna write your name down on this job application. But you know, it wasn't that at all.
It was like vouching for an entire.
I feel like
product.
Straight up lying is like different.
It was,
especially if the other person that you're lying on doesn't know.
It's completely.
Well, that's what this was. That was like a manipulation of the truth. Sure, you did technically teach them. They do know your name,
and then like, he was at the event.
Yeah,
but he wasn't my boy.
You know what I mean?
I feel like he could have asked you to get introduced if he wanted it to make it.
He's a grown up. He was like a 40-something-year-old man, and Anel Anaya is a lovely artist, but she also happens to be what people find traditionally attractive. So this guy had his eye on her and just wanted to be around her. So I heard the rest of the story. Yeah, it was very predatory.
See, I mean, grown ass man, you could have just asked, be like,
Yeah,
"Hey,
he
do you
could've
mind
done what-
connecting us?" Like the whole was and
But-
that, and then you maybe could have gone to them, and be like, "Hey, this guy's asking." And like, no, okay.
I always like hearing people tell me the shit they hear about me before. For example, I was introduced to a group and I was having, just a face-to-face conversation with them about our life. It was kind of like a podcast it's called Conversation. I think people are familiar with it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's fucking
Old
new.
school.
Old school. Not on the
nah.
phone or texting. Just
Nah, we don't
face-to-face.
talk now until we hit record, baby. Just kidding.
But I'm like, yeah, so like, and I would tell them where I heard about them from, and they would then proceed to tell me about how they heard that I stole money from a group. And I'm like, interesting. And I'm like, how did I steal this money? And they're like, well, you're paid to shoot a gig, but you never showed up. And I'm like, Magnusdiv did that? And then I know Miguel Gonzalez, that's who did it. And I'm like, that's my name. But I'm like, do you know how many?
That's a common name to be
Yeah.
throwing
I was like, that's like the
accusations.
John
That's my brother's
Smith.
name.
Like they didn't show you a picture, like
That's the John Smith in Mexico.
That's my dad's
right?
name.
It's like that's my
Bro.
dad's name.
Uncle's name.
Like, bro, like there's a lot of Miguel Gonzalez's out there, but from that, like
it's like I'm a young Miguel Gonzalez.
Like,
Like three people gonna say it.
I got hit with an incidental stray, like
Wow.
just from fucking having a name Miguel
Yeah.
Gonzalez. So I'm like, I'm over here talking to him like completely different people, man. I think we should shift subjects real quick.
Sure.
I think we should
To
talk
what?
about
AI. Just kidding.
Surtzy's what does he call it? Your dancing, your flame dancing,
Fire spinning?
Fire
You're
spinning.
gonna go fire
Oh,
spin,
yeah.
you said.
Yeah,
What's-
I'm excited about it. I'm still really scared of fire. So, like, I'm practicing with this group called Daisy's One World. They go to events and they perform. They do a lot of, like, go-go dancing. And I've been trying to, like, work out with them for, like, years since I got to Texas. But
really?
then, like, I just never had time because I was, like, doing my studying, reading, like, 1 billion pages a week. But now, eventually,
It's cool.
I get to go train with them.
Because you do fire spinning, but you also do what's the circle?
The Lyra.
Lyra. That's
Yeah.
right. Okay. When did you start getting interested in like that?
I started dancing at clubs like when I was like 22, and then some of them have lyras, so I was like, let me just mess around with these.
Okay.
Yeah, but then like I started circus training, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like a totally different style, but it's still the same apparatuses.
Yeah. Did you go somewhere or were you like self teaching?
With gyms.
Gyms,
like, yeah,
okay.
because they have to have like all the stuff. It's pretty expensive to buy everything. But like now I have my own rigs.
Oh, really?
But like when you first start, it's like kind of, it seems like a lot to spend money like on all that stuff.
Makes sense.
But now I'm like, I'll do anything for it. I'll sell all my TVs for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that what's the latest thing that you're like getting into?
Probably the song that I just dropped.
Okay.
It's like I never recorded officially until like maybe a few months ago. I used to just mess around, and then I was like, if I'm gonna keep like warming up and just singing and playing piano and whatever, might as well just start doing stuff with it.
Okay. So is it what is it a song you wrote? Is it like a cover?
It's a cover.
Okay.
It's called "This Magic Moment," like the really old one.
Oh,
But it's
yeah,
like
that's a good song.
experimental kind of thing.
I love that song.
Can you play it?
Can I play it?
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to play it?
Actually, don't.
Okay.
Let me
We'll play it after.
let
I'll
me
listen
edit
to
it a little
after.
bit.
Like, wait a minute.
We'll play it.
It's
We'll-
still kind of cringy listening to myself. It's like a weird,
Oh,
a weird
I think it's
obstacle
like
thing.
the imposter syndrome. You feel
It
like
feels
you're playing
weird
with
because
it.
it's like
That's
a
how I
different
felt.
personality.
Yeah.
Kind
How-
of.
So I mean that's one thing I was literally about to follow up and ask like, so you said like hearing yourself is kind of like weird. You said you also do podcasting. How long have you
Yeah.
been doing that? 'Cause
Maybe like 3 or March. Probably since March.
since March, because I know that was one of the weird things that really
Hearing
like got
yourself?
me was like hearing myself like on a weekly basis and like for an hour or so at a time, and I'm just like, I talk.
What do you think
a
was
lot.
weird?
Just I'm not used to hearing it, I guess, you know what I mean? And then like with these, I'm just like listening to myself talk, because it happened the same thing when I was like I was a bad singer for like a lot of years, and like the reason my band like let me join the band was just out of disparity. I was just there. I did I love this story. Like their original vocalist like never showed up to practice, and I just like loved hearing the band, so I would just like go listen, and then like, you know what, I'm just gonna write something to this song, and then like this is probably the 10th time vocalist not showing up, and I'm like, well, you know, I wrote a little something. You want me to just fill in just so there's something there? And yeah, and it was metalcore, so I had never done screams in my entire life. I just wanted to sing, so I'm like, maybe if I scream for this band, they'll let me sing too. So like then I just started like learning how to do that awfully. Like we recorded stuff, and it's just bad, huh?
Gutturals? Like,
not good. I would just like do like regular. I could show you some, but yeah, I got better, and it took like for like when the band broke up is when I considered myself like I finally got to be able to sing pretty well, and then we're over. Like, but yeah, like even that, like hearing myself like helped a lot. But that's why like I like nowadays where you can just record yourself a lot and just like pre-pro stuff. Even like back then when I didn't have the equipment, I was just phone stuff. Like, hey, record a voice memo, listen to it again. Oh, that's what I sound like. Okay, let me do it again. Like, and do it over and over again. And I think that's what helps me get more confident now, because it started that way when I started the podcast. I'm like, I'm listening to it like a lot, and by now I'm just like, the only thing I notice now is if I repeat stories, because I'm just like, I'm saying that same thing again, you know what I mean? Like I gotta pull something new. But yeah, most of the time, like it's fun. That's why it's cool having different people on here, because every time a new story will pop up, like someone else is different. But yeah, so the latest thing would be music. Do you think you're going to dedicate more time into that? Like, do you want to, or do you think you just want to?
I do this thing where I get like really into stuff. So like, it just like causes a whole thing. Like when I learn a program, then I'm like, okay, I need to learn the entire program. Then I'm like, what's another program that is comparable? And then I just like make my way through like random like instruments.
So like, I think I heard you on a podcast say like they were saying like, oh, you know, it's you have a lot of hobbies, and you're like, it's more like obsessions, like where you really like just get intense into stuff.
Like, I was practicing Thriller with a group last week, and then I like dreamt about it at night, because I think it's my brain though, because like every time I like read stuff. What?
You crash and burn?
No, I don't burn. It just like gets in there, then like I'll like until I learn it and memorize it. Like if I have a performance, I'll like dream about it, like the whole thing. It's like
I'm kind of similar. I have to learn the entirety of what I want to master until I master it, until I find it disgusting, and then I give up on it.
I don't find it disgusting. No, I'm just like, I already did it. We're doing other things.
Yeah, like I gave up on photography for like a year and a half, 2 years. I went kind of silent. I think you remember that.
Yeah.
I wasn't on there because I fucking hated it. I would look at a photo. I would look at my photos and I'd be like, ugh. Like it was, I was sick and tired of it. But only because I felt like I couldn't learn anymore. So it came to a point where I got so disgusted with my work that I was like, okay, you know lighting, Mr. Fancy Pants. Let's try to make something fucking new.
Films.
You know, shit, man. You don't tell you about the film community here.
Oh my God.
I just started getting into that.
I can introduce you to some folks, actually, but... Jesus Paso, Spectre Studios. He'd love you.
Cool.
Pretty cool guy. He's local. I'll introduce you with him for the podcast.
Nice.
Real chill. You guys could all have the same podcast going on at the same
time.
That'd be fun. We could have like a festival.
Yeah.
Podfest.
Yeah.
Podfest.
Hey.
Fort Worth Podfest.
Fort Worth Podfest.
DFW.
There's a podcast actually down the street called Fort Worth Roots. They're the ones that I know most about here, but they're like studios all fancy. They have like a whole metal sign outside in the studio.
Podcast is like the new morning show, bro.
Dude, it's one thing that I liked, like the podcast that I was listening to at the time. It's just the candidness. In my particular case, it was like I wanted to feel like people were just talking, like, you know what I mean? I like the, hey, there's not a normal time limit where like, hey, we're like a talk show, we're going to commercial, you know what I mean?
You're forcing the agenda.
Yeah, I'm like, oh no, like there's no forced bits.
Can you hear me? Like if I'm back here? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm watching
glad
it right here.
I didn't like just talking to nothing.
No. We finesse it here after, but yeah, like it's just the hell was I just saying?
There's no there's no commercials.
There's no like commercials. There's nothing like that needs to feel disingenuous. Like I don't need to set up like little bits. Like normally just like stories will pop up, you know what I mean? And it's a way to satisfy my need for like longer form content, but still benefiting from making short form content later. You know what I mean? Like the balance of both worlds. Because I'm like, yes, short form content gets a lot more like interactions and views and stuff like that, but I can still have a long form content that like satisfy my need to like make something that feels more cohesive, you know, that's not just like sound bites and stuff like that. But yeah, I do want to talk about, I saw you did Paris Fashion Week.
Yeah.
Is that your first time like doing like that?
Actually, another podcaster asked about Paris Fashion Week. Is that like cool to you guys?
I don't know what that is. To me, it seems like
because like a lot of people ask about it, and I'm like, why are they asking? Like, I do a lot of stuff that a lot of people bring that one up.
I just don't know what it is. Like, I've only seen it in just like. I don't know, like so, online, see, like so it seems like a big deal.
Crash course about fashion weeks. They have them in all like the main places. Like they have a Dubai Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week. It just happened or is currently happening this week. And there's like I think there's a Dallas Fashion Week, and just like they're all over the place. But it's usually where people will drop their lines for the next season to try and display like what they're going to be selling and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's really cool because it's like a lot of it should be cool because it's like designers and stuff, but a lot of it's like sold out stuff.
It's pretty cool.
But
I think
you can ignore that last part. It's just my critique.
Anytime like someone's traveling to like create things or like do whatever, like if you're passionate about something and you're going somewhere, it does fascinate me. It's like, oh, how did you get over there? Yeah. It's like because not that it's easier to do it where you're next, but it's more convenient like to do something like where you live at. But if you're going and traveling and something like that,
week here.
No, not very, but like you said, there was like a Dallas Fashion Week or something like that.
I want to go to all of them, but it's like
not the Brazil one.
Why?
It's yeah.
What do you mean?
What do you know about Brazil Fashion Week? Did you just throw out a random country?
No. I was watching a documentary. I think it was like Rio de Janeiro. Yes,
Rio de Janeiro.
And it was just like very, very. You ever seen Zoolander?
Yeah.
What was that guy? That line, Derelict? Very derelict.
Very derelict.
Let's just leave it there.
What do you mean?
You're not going to get me to miss stuff on a podcast. You're crazy.
Come on.
I want to go to all of them.
Oh, shit.
We're breaking it. Breaking my shit.
Testing.
We're paying. We're not getting paid here yet.
Ask me some questions, bro.
Ask you some questions?
Some nail biters.
Some nail biters. Yeah. So you already talked about drama in your community. So
yeah.
You got out of the Army, tried photography because you like it.
Wait, I think I do get disgusted at things. Because I was invited to New York Fashion Week this time around, and I was like, I already did it, kind of. Which is a bad feeling. Because I like being excited.
Yeah, no, I think when you do things for that alone, it causes you to like push yourself to the side. It's like not having discipline in a way that I'm aware of. Not talking about you, but I'm talking about myself at this point.
Yeah, well, I have zero discipline. Like everything I've even like ever done, like even the masters, was because I was like, I like this, but I can't imagine being like, I don't like this. I'm gonna still go. That would be hard.
Yeah, no, I'm the exact same way. I'm like, this is dry. I'm driven to do this because I feel like it has purpose. Yeah, and then past that, it's like I'm driven to do this because it feeds my ego, which then it goes into like I don't know. It's like it's that conversation you have with yourself of self-worth versus self-image. Like this is what I want to do to make myself feel accomplished, but this is how I want to look doing it. And you're having this like introspective battle with yourself of like, this is my art. How do I convey myself? So for the longest time, me as Magnusdiv, which stands for like make art, gain notoriety, unite souls, design, influence, veracity. That's what Magnusdiv stands for.
Really?
Yeah, it's not just a cool.
I'm gonna cry. That's beautiful.
That's what it means. That's what I got into it for. Wow. Well, thank you. But it was an experiment of my ego at first when it came to what I thought art was, and what I learned was I don't know shit about art. And I don't know shit about what people find important, because the only thing I was really focusing on for the first few years was the vanity of photo taking. Was the I was more focused on how clean an image looked, how crisp it looked, how great the retouch was, instead of telling a story behind the image. And where a lot of novice photographers who get in the game and then they deck their studio out and they get these badass rigs and they have these like lights and they spend $8,000 to learn nothing. And but they just wanted to feel like they were a professional YouTuber or a professional photographer. I found myself leaning towards that more at a point, until, like I said, I got disgusted with myself about the work I was creating and the things I was doing. And there was a moment when creating, I think everybody really has it, is when you start realizing that the thing that you once go to that, you know, was cathartic and gave you relief of life is not a place you can go to anymore. So then you're looking for solace elsewhere. And then when you're an artist and you do things like when you enjoy you know, how you were talking about how you enjoy everything you do, when you get to a point where you're in despair because you don't have a creative release, you start becoming bitter. And I did.
It happened to me like last month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, no. I need to do something else. So I just had to start planning for films.
Yeah, I realized that any of the times that I've been either slipping into depression or gone to be depressed always coincides with times I stop creating. Like, it's like clockwork. Like, it'll stop for something.
Do you stop creating because they're depressed, or are you depressed because you stop creating?
I think it's just one of the symptoms. Like, it's one of the things I'll stop when it's a decline, and I just realize, like, if I feel, because it happens, like, life shit, you know, or whatever, you know, so that once it starts happening, I now realize, like, I can't stop making stuff. Like, because that is the one thing, another thing that's holding me up, like, I stop doing, and then, like, I just completely fall down. But if I'm feeling down and then I make something and then it's like, cool, like, I did something, you know what I mean? Like, I created, like, this thing. Cool, there's that little sense that picks me up a little bit, start to drop again, make something else, and then I start ticking back up, like, to bring myself back up to, like, a place that feels good. But yeah, every time that I stop, like, it always coincides. So it's always a symptom. If it's been like 1 or 2 weeks, I'm just like, okay, like, what's happening? Like, I need to analyze or something.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that helps, like, with me specifically, which, like, a lot of structured stuff. So we talk about discipline and things like that. Like, there's a lot of times where I'm not motivated to do anything. So I'm like, okay, I need to just do it because it needs to be done. Like, you know,
when it comes to, and I'm going to interject here, when it comes to your sense of mortality, how does that affect your creative process?
We're never dying. We're artists.
I stopped focusing. When I was younger, I would even say maybe crossing when I turned 30, it stopped mattering. Like, 20s, for some reason, early 20s, invincible. Like, there's nothing like that can happen. Like, I can do whatever I want, and I acted that way. Yeah. And then later, like, you know, in late 20s, it was all death. Like, I was like, oh, like, I have, you know, it's gonna go away
Greg
one day.
Greg get you on that talk too, huh?
Huh?
Greg got you on that talk.
I don't think so. No, I think Greg's was, like, pretty fun.
The reason I bring it up because I was kind of wondering where you got. If you got that same push, but I remember that didn't even think about mortality to the extreme that I do now, or not that I do always, but that I did at one point, where you realize you're not invincible, you're not immortal, and you're going to die one day and be worm food. But I remember me and Greg were sitting down having a conversation. And we were just shooting the shit. And Greg's a great conversationalist, man. He can get into your soul with kindness. And he said something that he's like, yeah, I remember in the past where I used to focus on mortality, that I just didn't want to move because I just said, what's the point? I'm going to die anyways. And for some reason, you know, we're having a regular conversation. Life was great. I didn't know what death was in my head. That's not true. But I just kept thinking about it, and it really, I think it affected my work because at that point I realized, like, well, if I'm gonna die, I can either decide to define who I am and make an impact in the world with the things I do and everything I do, or I could continue to be depressed and I can continue to sulk and I can continue to try to rationalize my fears. But in reality, you can't do anything because mortality's there. And then I think that kind of plays into, even further plays into the Katrina work I'm working on now, with a couple of hair and makeup artists. Because I'm not sure how familiar you are with Katrina's or Dia de los Muertos or anything like that, but I know you're a fan of it, of course. But like the community now it's more, it's kind of different than it is here than it is in Mexico because of the whole tradition in Mexico. You have ofrendas. You actually go to the cemeteries.
Yeah.
My mom was really hardcore about it and telling me that people would just sleep the night at the funeral. And but when I came here, I thought it was a beautiful tradition. I thought that everything that surrounded Mexican culture was beautiful, and I wanted to make a documentary. I don't know if you remember hearing me talk about documentary at one point, but I started interviewing people, and then I started realizing that the community here in Dallas-Fort Worth, they were using that specific portion of our culture to promote themselves as artists, but not really give a shit about the history, culture of
Understanding it.
Yeah, so it was like there's more vanity on their part because they felt like it's like you found a niche and people want that niche around them. This is why you see a lot of Katrinas and car shows and lowriders. It's like I'm watching my people forget who they are because we create stereotypes from ourselves. Because I'm from California. Cholo culture is not Chicano culture. And Katrinas aren't Halloween costumes. They're a form of remembering our mortality and forgetting the self-image and focusing on the self-worth. But I feel like I've been ranting this whole time, guys. I'm sorry.
I don't count it as a rant.
You're looking at the time like, damn, what time?
No, yeah. Just because of the batteries. But no, I mean, touching on that just as quickly as I can.
I think
I don't want to, but
yeah,
you really do. Yeah.
Because like a lot of colonialism wiped away a lot of culture. And sometimes people are just like, I don't really know exactly what it is or where it comes from and stuff like that. So reminders are always helpful.
I think that has a lot to do with it. I think the way that classism or I forget what the actual chart they had Spanish created for the Mexicans, that they're like, you're a certain race with another race that you had higher value. I mean, of course, the Spanish people were the top, and then you had like Spanish with native or Spanish with another Spanish person that was born in Mexico. It's kind of wild. You're talking about that kind
Very
of stuff?
specific.
Yeah, it's very wild.
Well, I'm talking about how like in a lot of like schools and stuff, they would prevent people from talking about culture or like culture that wasn't like white culture and stuff like that. So eventually people just forget. Like
Texas history was like that.
Yes, it's funny because Texas history was one thing that I remember in elementary school, I was fascinated with Texas history, with this version of Texas history, right? And then I would talk to my mom about it. We'd get in the biggest arguments, and she's like, "You're wrong, like about 90% of the shit that you're saying." And I was like, "No, like this is the way it happened. These are the good guys. This blah blah blah." And it's like, "What the fuck?" And we like arguing, and like again, like growing up and growing out of it, it's like, holy shit, like okay, like there's so much that just like. What the hell was I even studying and like reading? Like none of these events like happened the way that I like, even learned, like literally got taught in school. Everybody who I was going with, like all learned the same shit that we did. Yeah. And it was wrong. You know what I mean? Or
what's the typical story you hear as a Mexican? You're Mexican, right? I don't want you to assume you're Mexican. You always hear, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Spanish and Mexican beef. Like from Spain and Mexico, they're always beefing. But
You mean like how Spain invaded Mexico
that, I want to
and
hear
then
it.
like a lot of us are descendants, or a lot of people that are from Mexico are
So
descendants
one of the
of
biggest kind of like
native
that.
and Spaniards.
No, it's like so Spain invaded Mexico. Hernan Cortez came in, burned his ships, and was tracking tribes at that time to figure out his war campaign. Most of his men wanted to go back to the Caribbean because the natives there were a lot nicer and docile compared to the natives in Mexico. Essentially, they collected enough intelligence to understand that the natives around the area hated the Aztecs because of the Aztec Rose Wars. So the Rose Wars were a war of attrition where they'd go out to different cultures, different tribes, and say, "Meet us on the battlefield, bring 200 men, and we're going to fight it out there." But the Aztecs 200 was accounted for maybe 0.001% of their population in their army, where other tribes 200 was basically their entire force. So when they would capture them, so a lot of people didn't like the Aztecs at the time. Is basically what I'm saying. And so my mother's tribe, Purepichas from Michoacan, where she's from Jungapeo, Michoacan, but the Purepichas were helping the Spanish during that time frame because they hated the Aztecs. And so you had these group of natives that were from that portion of Mexico helping the Spanish. So it was a 27-to-1 ratio, 27 natives to 1 Spanish person that helped conquer the Aztecs. So when people tell me that Spain conquered Mexico, it's not true. Mexico conquered Mexico. The Spanish just somehow, well, first of all, it's not the Spanish, but it's this indoctrination period of Mexico from the 17 to 18 to 1900s where classism prevailed, where the lighter skin, the better you're off in society because people weren't able to trace back their lineage as much as they could anymore.
Yeah.
And until this day, you see Mexicans or self-hating Mexicans and Spanish people continue to propagate that Spain conquered Mexico when in reality Mexico conquered itself and added a new diplomacy.
Never heard that version of it.
But
I haven't either.
that's the real history. That's not the that's the thing that really bothered me. My mother, big historian, and I was the same way. I was like, this isn't true. This is what was told. Like, this isn't what my friend Jimmy said. He said the Spanish came and and so it took me reading up on Purepecha history and Aztec history and all the codexes that were burned by the Catholic priests and all the history that's been buried and built on top of. This is why you see churches and cathedrals on top of old Aztec pyramids. It's because they try to bury the history of everything that was going on that time. And you'll see traces of resentment towards Mexican culture from European countries like Britain in regards to, no, I want to say Britain. But they'll say like Oxford is older than the Aztec Empire, which is very fucking true. It was before the 1500s. I think it was like 1000. Like around, I don't fucking know.
You're teaching me.
Yeah, but it's very true. But it's just like a way to subjugate people to make them seem like they're not capable of being anything more than subjugated. And so, being Mexican to me, as a veteran, as a person that's given a good chunk of his life to this country, when I hear misinformation given to me in the ruse to try to make me feel less than, I am always reminded of this scholar in the 1920s who were talking. He wrote this whole essay, and I think I gave you part of it the other day. But the sentiment essentially in this entire essay was that we as Mexicans we exist without permission, that we shouldn't be held back by our past, whether it be European or native, because we should transcend our ancestors to be better people for the world. So existing without permission is exactly what I guess existing without position is like the untold, unsaid modus operandi for Mexicans, because we're everywhere in the world, and somehow not only do we make an impact, but we tend to offend those that won't. It's because we won't let ourselves be subjugated by anybody, and that's. I think that reflects a lot in my work and my attitude towards people and towards history, how it's written as an entirety, because I don't feel like any group of people are better than anybody else. I feel like everybody has the same. I don't think anybody gets up in the morning and says, I want to do something bad. I want to make somebody feel like shit. I don't think people do that. I think what we get taught are the shitty ideas of people who aren't around anymore. And I think we as a society...
That's true.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, so I think we should all just fucking chill out and drink some more tequila and get rid of race.
There you go.
The race.
Yeah. That's a history lesson. Now I need to look about it because I didn't know that.
That was a lot.
But yeah, the overall sentiment were like people upholding these ideas for people like who have not
Don't
existed
exist
for
anymore.
you know hundreds of years or however fucking long is wild to me. Like, you know, the most mundane like subjects, like the fact that racism is still a fucking thing is so fucking crazy to me. And it's so, and then there's something about experiencing it on the outside, like if you're seeing it like on TV or whatever. Now I don't give a shit what gets put in front of me, like on the screen, because I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck this is. Like, I don't trust it. But I've had instances where I've gotten to speak to people who feel that way, and I'm like, that's weird. Like, you're a real person, and like, yeah, like, I mean, like, and there's like certain like small ways that I've experienced it, like, but then I've like talked to people who have that like type of rate. I'm like, that is
it's rage, bro. It's the people who are really racist have this unfettered rage, if you will.
I think it is. Yeah, in Kentucky, there's a lot, and it's actually like popular, like to be racist.
Yeah.
Weren't you telling me that out there? They're like they try to demean you for.
Well, to them, like if you try and even talk like eye to eye, they think it's offensive because that's how racist it is.
They think you're the help or something.
Yeah, like, or if you like for example, I saw my Caucasian friend talk to a police, and I was like, I could never. Like, they tried to shoot me once for like being around. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
they had their gun out in my face because I was scary because of the racism, for example.
What the fuck?
But I was like 13 and stuff, so to them they just register it as like a violent person, I guess.
Fuck. Yeah, no, I got pulled over for something stupid, but it was kind of quick story. I swear, I'm not gonna go.
No,
I talk about a racist story. You talk about a racist story.
I'll tell you.
we'll all share one racist story, then we're wrapping up.
I'm in Fort Irwin, California. I'm driving this 1994 Honda Civic, sway bars on the bottom and shit. Just it's ghetto. It's all blacked out. I got it from my cousin, and I'm driving down 10 on the freeway. I need to go back to Fort Irwin, California. It's like 2 hours away. And I get pulled over, and this this cop car just has this beam of light behind me, just like I can't see. I feel like I'm getting abducted by a UFO. That's how much fucking light's there. And so I pull down the window, and I'm at nut level because the fucking car is so low. And I'm like trying to do this number. And he's like, where are you going? Where are you going? I'm like, oh, I'm going on base, sir. And I'm doing the whole, here's my ID and license. Please don't shoot me kind of deal. He's like, oh, you're a soldier? I'm like, oh, yes, sir, I'm a soldier. He's like, oh, yeah. What unit you with? So I tell him my unit. And he's like, what's the, and he starts asking me trivia about that unit. Like, what's the unit emblem? And I'm like,
not believing you.
Yeah, but this is the funny part, right? we keep going. He keeps asking me, and then he starts asking me to sing the song, the Trooper song.
What the fuck? Hold on.
I was bored.
I'm being,
Wow.
Like, the song he wants me to like the NCO Creed, the Soldiers Creed. Like he was asking for specific things. At this point, I showed him my ID card and everything. So like I'm like, why the fuck is he fucking with me?
Yeah.
He's like, get out the car, and I'm like, fuck. Here I'm going to jail at this point. I'm thinking, and he's like, hey man, I'm just fucking with you. I'm a soldier too. So this cop, he's a reservist for the same base. And he's like, he saw my card. He knew exactly from the first question that I was in Fort Irwin, but he was just like fucking. He took his time to fuck with me.
Yeah.
And so it was a bad situation.
What if he had like PTSD or something?
No, he was so cool about it afterwards, but it was just a moment where I thought racism was prevailing because I was in the wrong part, and I was like, boy, you know where you're going. But in reality, it was just another trooper that just wanted to fuck with me because it was the middle of the night. He's like, go down this way, fucker, and you'll be there. But yeah, I've had.
That was a good story.
It was a good story, yeah, but it was
It's a happy one.
That's a happy one. Yeah.
I didn't want to keep being
Glad
Debbie
you're
Downer.
here.
I'm like, hey. But yeah, man, it was crazy. Come and say hi to you again, man. It's been
I thank you so much for stopping by, man. I felt like this could have just kept going, to be honest
I
with
feel
you.
like it could go
yeah.
for like years.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're at an hour and a half, and that one's about to die. So no, you're good. You're good to go. I'm telling you, like if this goes, then it goes. But yeah, thank you for.
You want to do outros?
Yeah. So if you want to plug anything in.
Do you want to plug anything?
No, I'm good.
You could find me on magnusdiv.com and on Instagram as magnusdiv. And if you really feel inclined to it, you can buy some of my work and press like, subscribe, comment. That's it. That's all I got.
Bye.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. This has been episode 121 with Magnusdiv and Surtzy. Surtzy? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Or is it Surtzy? My bad.
Whichever.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.
Sounds and breakdowns.
Love me instead.